Vice President of the United States of America on the GOP ticket. Who we thinking? My latest thesis, and I'm entitled to change my thesis, right? From time to time. Originally, I was like, okay, he needs a woman. And now I'm like, no. Look, we're fine with whoever he goes with. He's said this before himself. Look, it's not the be all end all, and that realistically, people are voting for him. They're not voting for the vice president. In Joe Biden's case, you're literally voting for the vice president. Remember that. You're voting for Kamala Harris. You're not voting for Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, in all seriousness, we don't even know if he's going to make it to November 24, let alone past that. But in the case of Donald Trump, you are voting for somebody who I think complements him, but is not the be all end all in terms of the candidate. So I say that. I preface this by saying I think we're going to be totally fine. It's a very deep bench. I love all of these people that they're talking about. But as we consider how it's getting whittled down, while I first thought, okay, you go with a woman, you try and basically bridge that gap with gender, because a lot of women are not as fond of Donald Trump, say, as men are. So you go with a woman and you try and hope that you can kind of appease some of them. But I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that actually, I think women are pretty tough on women. And, then it's like, oh, is she too this? Is she too that? Is she too this? So maybe the answer is forget about a woman for the vice presidential spot. You could put a woman in as Treasury Secretary. You could put a woman in as head of commerce. You could put a woman in, as we've seen before, for Mayorkas's role, right? The head of Homeland Security. There's a lot of different positions for women. But in terms of electability, if you could somehow close this gap with minorities, Joe Biden is going to make a really big push. He wants minorities. He's got Barack Obama in his ear saying, this is how you win. Well, what if the answer is not actually necessarily women per se, but actually picking a minority man who would help bring in more women? Because, so long as he loves his wife and he loves his mom, I think a lot of women would find that very appealing, while simultaneously showing a different path forward for a lot of minority men in America. And that actually could be something that's different, that's innovative, and has a lot of appeal. Tim Scott has certainly been talked about a lot in South Carolina. He just recently got engaged. He was part of the reason why the president saw success in South Carolina. And it's going to be a state that the president needs to win going forward, considering that it was like 60-40 with a lot of Republicans still coming out for Haley. I think it's an important data point and tells him he can't slack in South Carolina. He's going to have to work hard, which puts Tim Scott up front there. You've heard lots of talk about Ben Carson. The Trump family, I know, likes Ben Carson very, very, very much. Dr. Carson, tremendous, tremendous person, obviously quite brilliant, and a big supporter, very loyal to Trump for many, many years. So Dr. Carson's in the running. And then the guy that, is a little bit new on the scene, that at one point they were talking about potentially as Speaker of the House, that would be Byron Donalds. So that's another person to potentially look at out of California. And I know, Don, you've got your reservations about two people out of Florida, and that could be real. We have to look at the math there. But my thesis holds. My thesis is that maybe the answer here is really finding somebody that can help cement some of this minority sort of momentum. Because right now, the former president is doing really well. Biden is down 20 points. Can you believe that? With minorities. This is a group that he should just kind of have locked up, and yet he does not. So I sense vulnerability there. And if I'm the Trump campaign, I'm playing to that vulnerability for all it is worth. And I'm going to try really hard to bring in some of those. What do you guys think, right? Give me some more ideas, because we talk about this every single day, and we're going to be doing our best, right, to make sure that we are able to communicate with lots and lots of people, including those on the inside. And I have my sources. But this is a message that I think should be delivered loud and clear, that there's an opportunity here, and we got to run some numbers, but start looking at somebody who can help bridge this gap with minorities, because it's happening on its own. And I think there's more to be done.